Hi, my name is Dylan. I'm going to tell you about the mod I made to help you play Mortem et Gloriam in Tabletop Simulator. Call it Scripted Mortem et Gloriam. So I'm just going to start from the beginning. I'm going to load it up here. And this is my first attempt at a scripted mod, first attempt at Lua, the language, etc., etc. So go easy on me, but let me know if you find any bugs in this thing. You can comment on the this YouTube video or on the workshop page for it itself. But I'm going to take you through step by step how it works. Everything here was created by the author of the previous MeG mod, like all the objects and whatnot. Really, the only thing I've added is the scripting part. Another gentleman created the miniatures, set up the table, imported the cards, did all that work. So I owe a lot to him. I'm just building on the work that he did. So let's show you though what I did, what I've set up. I made this menu here. This is a little UI element for helping you manage cards. This comes into play after the pre-battle system. I would recommend during the pre-battle system, maybe you just deal yourselves cards, right out of the deck, right, which will go to the number one spot here. You'll notice that we've got 4 different spaces for cards, right, and that will be the hands for each of your generals. If I go up to the gizmo tool, right, I can see all of those things, right. Those are the hands for both the red and the blue player. Little warning here, right? Don't delete these. It will break the mod. Don't delete this big script zone here. That will also delete the or break the mod, right? It relies on those things for what it does. Okay. Also, it only works if you have people seated in the red and the blue seats, because the hands and whatnot are tied to a particular player color. So I have the blue selected, right? I'm the blue player. Could change myself, wanted to red, right? Change myself back to blue. The menu is particular to the player. What do I mean by that? That means when I move this around, you can drag it wherever is convenient for you, right? But I'm not dragging it for both players. The red player will see their own copy of this, right? During the game, they can put theirs wherever they want. The drop downs are specific to the player also, right? So when I'm changing things here, I'm changing things for my generals. I'm not changing it for the red general. He has to update his own generals here. So what we would do after the pre-battle phase, when we're ready to kind of set up our generals and start dealing cards to them, right? We would select the appropriate level for each general on the drop downs. Here is Talented. He's our army commander, right? So we will set him to Talented. Got a Competent guy over here. Set him to Competent. In the middle, Mr. Mediocre. Set him to Mediocre. And let's have a Competent on our right wing. Set him to Competent. All right, very good. You'll see that each time I change these, it actually displays the general ratings over in the chat. At any time I can hit this button, right, it will also just check the general ratings. It shows me all of my ratings and all of my opponent's ratings. So let's go ahead and deal cards to all these generals. I'm going to click the Deal Cards button, and whoop, it's going to deal cards to all of the generals who've been set up. Sometimes the animation's a little slow there. It does that little unfolding, whatever. That's not a me thing. That's a Tabletop Simulator thing. But just give it a second. I advise you not to spam the Deal Cards button. Let's see, how can I say this without using too many sort of IT words, but it's hard not to. Things are asynchronous in Tabletop Simulator, meaning when you click on that Deal Cards button, little card objects are flying out of this deck and like moving across the table, right? So conceivably, if you just sit there and bang away on that button, right, the logic, which knows that this guy, has 2 cards and doesn't need more or whatever, you can kind of impact that, right? Because it doesn't know it doesn't know that the cards are in flight. But I don't know. It's pretty simple though not to do that. Just don't let it deal the cards. Let it do its thing. Little animation happens. Cards are dealt. Everything should be okay. So here we've got our talented Army commander. If I want to distribute cards to my subgeneral, we know that mediocre guy, he probably needs some help, so we can give him some cards. You just drag them, right? Drag and drop out of the Army commander over to the subgeneral that you want to assign it to, right? And now they've got the cards. During the course of the game, you can just drag the cards onto the table as you play them. Here, it's an example. Actually, let's say we want to hang on to that red card, right? We all like red cards. Might not have a reason to use it this first turn. But I'm going to put all the cards on the table. My opponent, he can do the same, right? Let's assume he plays his cards. And now they're on the table. We're ready to start. We want to discard this black card, obviously. One likes a black card. So we're ready to start a new turn. And we can click on this button to clean up the cards. Shoop! It's just going to suck them all up into the deck. And it also shuffles them, right? Or you can always hit this button and shuffle them some more if you feel like that. When you deal the cards, it also does a shuffle before it deals the cards. That's just lots of shuffling. Make sure the cards are good and shuffled. And we see we're hanging on to this one red card, but that's okay. I'm going to deal the cards to the generals, and it dealt me 3 cards. It knows that I had a card and I need 3 cards because I'm a talented general, right? Everybody else drew up to what they're supposed to have, and we're ready to go for another turn, right? We can just play our cards, etc., through the course of the game, and we just continue, right? Like that. This saves you the trouble of having to kind of gather up the cards and group them together and put them back in the deck, etc., etc. It actually, over the course of a game, right, it does take some time, so that's why I created this. It's also, for me at least, it was an easier thing to tackle than some of the more complicated things like movement and wheeling, which I might get into later, but I'll make some more videos about that at another time. Think if there's anything else. A couple little behavior things to look out for. If your cards are near the edge, right, so let's click this cleanup button. It cleaned up all the cards that are mostly on the table, right? But this one, if it's near the edge, there's kind of this big box area where it is looking for cards, right? And if the card isn't all the way in that sort of box, invisible box that's covering the table, then it doesn't clean them up. So if it doesn't catch that card, it's probably because it's just a little too near the edge, right? And you can just push it forward a little bit, and then it will catch that card and put it right back in the deck. Speaking of the deck, please don't put the deck on the table. Some weird behavior happens if you put the deck on the table and you click the cleanup card buttons. It sort of tries to put the deck inside the deck. It's a little strange. There shouldn't be a lot of reason to do that, to put the deck on the table, so just kind of keep it off the main table. There is a lot of ways to indicate the active player. We use an elephant. So I just included our active player elephant. We just pass this back and forth the same way you might pass the deck of cards or the bag of tokens back and forth when playing the tabletop version on a real table like we used to do before the pandemic, right? I've also got some Pacto stuff over here. Here's the Pacto quick reference sheet. We usually play Pacto in Tabletop Simulator just because it's faster. There are fewer things to move. Get a little sip of water here. All right. A couple other Pacto things. I've got the Pacto sticks, measuring sticks, the Pacto quick reference sheet. I've got a Pacto mat, right? This is kind of scaled to go with the base width of these miniatures. I don't know if I mentioned the instructions, but I've got a little PDF instructions here. It's like I said, I think I said this, that they are more or less what I just went over in this video, but in a written format, right? So that's always there for you. Obviously, you can move that out of the way, do whatever you want, delete it if you don't need it. There's the Pacto mat. If you're going to use this, definitely hit the L key to lock it down, right, before, so you don't accidentally toss it around. But other than that, it's there for you to use. Oh, I didn't cover wounded generals, right? So let's go back to my seat right over here in blue. If you do have a general who's wounded, like let's say this talented general, he goes up there, he fights, he gets wounded, you can just change the generals at any time, right? So talented can drop down to competent. If you have a mediocre down here, wounded mediocre, right, that's a guy who gets one card. If I remember the rules right, anyway, you have an option to give a guy one card, it's that. And what else? Oh, renaming the generals, right? It is helpful to, at least I find it helpful to just change the general labels, right? So on our talented guy here, Kim General 1, we say number 2 is competent, it's this guy, right? So again, you see how it's done. We're just right-clicking on him, change the name so that we always keep track. This guy in the end is a General 4. Mr. Mediocre is General 3. Helps us keep track of them, right? I also try to line these up more or less, if I have the guy on the right wing, make him General 4 or what have you, right? Just helps you keep track of things. Okay, I think that's about it. Again, if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them on the YouTube video, on the workshop mod page, right, in Steam, or on the Steam website rather, or on the Mortimer Glorm Facebook page. You can usually find me on there too. So any of those places are fine. I might expand this in the future, like I said, might look into movement and whatnot. But wheeling, of course, is obviously a challenge, but that really gets technical. I might make another video on that, but that will be for another time. So thanks again. Hope this helps you out.